Beyond, here to talk about the lunar cycle, the waxing and waning moons, and how to use them. This is something that I talk about a lot during my weekly forecasts, and it's something that you can do for yourself with just a minimal amount of effort. It's really not very difficult to know where the moon is in terms of its cycle, and you can plan out things in a basic kind of way without too much effort. Just something to keep in mind as you go along making your plans. This is what I thought we'd talk about this week. I think it's a good topic. And if you have a better idea, why don't you type it in the comments? I'd be happy to, address it sometime soon. Okay, the waxing and waning moon. This is easy stuff. So each month we have a point where the sun and the moon are at the same point in the sky. And because of that, you cannot see the moon. It's hidden by the glare of the sun. And that is the new moon. And then 2 weeks later, we have the sun and the moon at opposite points in the sky. And that is the full moon. And that is when you see the moon as a big full disk in the sky. So between the new moon and the full moon is what we call the waxing phase, where the moon is getting bigger each night. And then between the full moon and the new moon is what we call the waning phase, when the moon is getting smaller. Okay, simple enough. Now, just to work with the waxing and waning phases, there are a couple of rules of thumb that you can apply. And it goes sort of like this if we do it simply, and then we'll do a little more complicated. But first, we'll do it simply. During the waxing phase, when the moon is getting bigger, between the new moon and the full moon, is a good time to begin things that you want to grow, right? You initiate things that you want to grow, to get bigger. So, for example, it would be a great time to open a bank account or an investment account. It would be all of the things being equal. It would be a good time to open a business. That's typically something we want to grow. And things like that. It's a good time in general to start a house project or something. It's a good time for initiation. You don't necessarily want house projects to grow out of proportion, but it's a good time for initiation. On the waning phase of the moon is a very good time to initiate activities for things that you want to diminish. Now, what do you want to diminish, you say? Well, for example, if you have a diet where you want to lose weight, you should begin that on the waning moon, right? Because we're talking about a time when things are going to decrease. You want your weight to decrease. If you're on a diet to build muscle, do that on the waxing moon. If you are looking to lose weight, you'd want to begin that on the waning moon. If you're looking to sell something, if you're looking to sell your house, or that boat or RV you bought during the pandemic because you were so sure that life was going to be like that, you'd want to list it with the moon waning. And that's an important thing. You just want to list it with the moon waning. It doesn't mean that it's going to sell like that. It doesn't mean that things are going to go away immediately. You have the energy of getting rid of it. It's a good time to list something on Etsy or eBay. It is a good time, I would have to say, for a garage sale or something like that, right? I mean, you want to make money from Etsy and eBay and a garage sale, but you don't want the item, you don't really want it to grow. Now, you would open up your Etsy shop on the waxing moon, but you would want to list items on the waning moon. I mean, you have to list a few when you open up your shop and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying. All things being equal, you want to list things that you want to get rid of or diminish on the waning moon. Now, I don't know, but I've been told that the waning moon is also good for things that you want to endure without necessarily growing. We could say something like a yoga or Tai Chi practice, or in the community, maybe if you had some sort of community group or something like that. You don't necessarily want it to grow. You just want it to endure. You want it to keep it around for a while. Right, stuff like that. So those are the basics of it. Things that you want to grow, you start on the waxing moon, and then after the full moon, things that you want to diminish or get rid of, you do on the waning moon. You open up your investment account on the waxing moon, and some years later, you close it on the waning moon, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's the basic approach. And again, the waxing moon is good for most projects, if you're doing some artistic project or something like that, waxing moon is probably the way you want to go. But, again, we have to say all things being equal. Now, the first caveat, avoid the new moon and the full moon, right? And by avoid those, I mean the day before and the day after each of them. We always talk about the moon is 3 nights dark at the new moon. And as you know from watching werewolf movies, the moon is 3 nights full around the full moon. So you really want to avoid those times. You want to avoid the full moon because there's just too much going on. People are just a little bit, there's a little bit, well, lunatics. We have a little bit of lunacy around the full moon. And so we don't want to try to tap into doing some project or getting something done when people are so excited about things. People get about 20 minutes less sleep per night during the full moon time. The full moon is also a time when things come to light, when other things that were seeded a long time ago wind up manifesting. And so our attention is often drawn to those things rather than some new thing that is put out there, whether it's a new project that you're launching or whether it's something that you're trying to sell. Right around the full moon, it's likely to not get very much attention. The new moon is too quiet a time to get much done, right? It's a time when things are sort of settling in and settling down, and it's the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. And here the energy is just lacking. At the full moon, there's too much energy. At the new moon, generally speaking, energy is lacking. Saying 3 days on, the 3 days of a day on either side of the new and full moon is a kind of conservative number. I would, if you're going to do something that requires a little bit of time to get it done, not a lot of things are done in the moment, you may want to give a couple more days on either side. I would say what we call the gibbous moon should be like your limit points over there. So I would say probably, 4 or 5 days before or after the full moon. If you're looking to get rid of something, maybe 3-4 days after the full moon would be an okay time. You want to kind of catch a little of the full moon energy. Maybe we're getting a little specific here, but that's okay. If we want to make it a little bit more precise, then a really good time to initiate something is at the first quarter moon. Now, the first quarter moon happens a week after the new moon, a week before the full moon. And that is really the time of initiation. That is like the perfect time, all else being equal, and it's not. That is the perfect time to begin something new. Right? There's a lot of energy that is available for new things, new projects, moving forward. And then if you begin something at that first quarter moon, there's a first quarter moon is when you look up in the night sky and you see a half moon. Right? That's one of the great little ironies. The great little ironies. Well, it is sort of like that the first quarter moon is the disk of half a moon. When you look and say, well, that's a half moon, it's the first quarter moon because it's a half of the disk, but it's a quarter of the way through the cycle. You get it. When you get something at the first quarter moon, the moon is bright enough and there's enough energy in it, and we're just going to continue that energy for the next week up to the full moon. So the first quarter moon is usually considered to be like the optimal time to really begin something. In other words, to open your business, right? To put your website out there, something like that. It's the optimal time to begin something brand new. The last quarter moon, which happens a week after the full moon and a week before the new moon, is a time of assessing and deciding what you're going to keep, what you're going to let go of, what's working, and start looking forward to things that you want to do in the future. It is a very good time for letting go of stuff. If you're looking to sell something, though, I would probably try to list it a few days before the last quarter moon, rather than waiting for the actual last quarter moon. In fact, people will be making decisions about things right around the last quarter moon. Now, dealing with the new moon and the full moon. Well, the full moon is easy because you don't really deal with a lot. Things come up, they come at you. and whatever it is, right? You're essentially, you can still make intelligent choices in the midst of the lunacy, and you should make intelligent choices in the midst of the lunacy. But really, it's a time of manifestation. It's a time when things come out and you've already done all that you can do most times at the full moon. So we don't kind of make that, I mean, it's important. I talk about it every month in the forecast. It's important, but it's important in terms of what happens. It's not very good in terms of what you're going to do. Now, the new moon. The new moon is a little tricky because you say, well, this is a time when you're going to be setting intentions, right? Yeah. First of all, a few days before the new moon, I would say 3 or 4 days before the new moon, kind of let things go. You know where your concerns are. You know what's important. You know what you would like to happen at some point. But let it go. Hold it in your heart. You're going to review it in your brain, but this is not a time for action. It's not even really a time for direct intention setting, right? You want to sort of a little bit have an idea about where you're going with things. And when you get to the exact new moon, a lot of folks ask me, like, when is the new moon exact? As with any of these things, you can find this out on any weather app, most weather apps. I'm a little disappointed to see that Apple doesn't have it on their weather app. They have the sunrise and sunset, but they don't have the phase of the moon. A little miffed at them for that. But anyways, it's easy enough to find. Right at the moment of the new moon, you know what you're concerned with. If it's a job or it's relationship or something like that, you know what you're concerned with. And if you want to light a candle or some incense, if you want to say a prayer, if you want to meditate or something like that, it's great. But we don't necessarily want to encode anything right there. We don't necessarily want to be stating our intention and sending it out there. Wait 6 to 12 hours after the new moon to do that. Give it a little bit of time. It's still close enough. Give it a little bit of time. Again, the new moon is not the frenzy of the full moon, but the new moon is such a beginning time. It has so much power, but that power is so unconscious that we really, you want to get a more attenuated version of it. So 6 to 12 hours afterwards, then you can light the candle and say, well, this is what I want to do. In fact, 12 to 24 hours after the new moon, it would be good for you to take some action in the direction you want to move. So for example, a really good example would be if you're looking for a new job, right? That's your intention. I want to get a better job. Okay, well, the thing to do is to wait 12 to 24 hours after, and then just go browse the want ads, go online and see what's available. And don't, you could maybe take notes if you want or something like that. Make a big deal out of it, but you're just doing some action in the direction of what you want. It's not a big deal, a little action in the direction you want to go. Why? Because whether we're talking about the cosmos, the universe, the gods, your own unconscious, however you want to call it, it responds better to action than to words alone. So the verbalizations, the intention setting, the affirmations and things like that are terrific. It gets your mind in tune with things. But you're looking to do something, and action is an indication that this is what you're looking to do. You're looking for something to happen. So do something. Now, after the new moon, usually 2, sometimes 3, but usually 2 days after the new moon, it depends what time of day the new moon falls on and so on. At some point in time, you will see a tiny little crescent moon, a little silver slipper of a moon, as Tennessee Williams said in The Glass Menagerie. You will see a tiny little crescent moon up in the sky. That is your indication that it's time to actually start doing something. What would you do? Well, you might have to wait till the next day because it is, after all, going to be at night. It's going to be in the evening, right? After sunset, you'll see it. Right around that time, after you've seen the crescent moon, is the time when you would do some preliminary sort of stuff. So let's say, for example, if you have some sort of project, this would be a time to start calling people and asking them if they have any interest in it, and so on. And then the first quarter moon is the time when you would actually initiate. Now, note, some of these things, I mean, most substantial things in life require more than, like, a week between setting your intention at the new moon and putting something into action, right? Like, well, I'm going to set my intention to open up a business at the new moon. I'll call people and line up stuff starting at the crescent moon, and then I'll open my business at the first quarter moon. Well, not so much, right? This might play out over the course of several lunar cycles. However, it's still a good idea to follow the intention setting, to take some minor action, to take a little bit more action, and then at the first quarter moon, to take some decisive action. Right? Understood that this could take a while to actually gain traction. I mean, if your intention is to go back to school and get your master's degree or something like that, this is going to take some time. In fact, we could discuss that in relationship to moon families, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about the basics of when you would put things in action. So set the intention to get a new job, check the want ads, make a few phone calls. At the first quarter moon, send out a resume or two. That's enough. And it may, if everything works out great for you, a week later, you hear back, and then from a couple of places, and a week after that, at the last quarter moon, you make your decision, and you tell them that your start date is sometime after the new moon. More or less, this is going to take months or maybe even longer to play out, but you've taken the initial actions at the right time. So this is that first part of the cycle, right? The first part of the cycle between the new moon and the first quarter moon is it's the most precise timing required. After the first quarter moon, hopefully things catch, and as you build up to the full moon, you just continue to put stuff out there, you continue to work on the project, and so on. It's not like you should be inactive during the next part of it. Just because you've passed the full moon, you say, well, now I do nothing for 2 weeks, I'll start again. No, once you've initiated the action at the right time, you can continue the action all the way through the lunar cycle, being a little careful around the full moon and the new moon. But other than that, you can continue to send out resumes and whatever all the way through until you get down pretty close to the new moon again. So it's not like we're going to stop and do nothing. That would not be a productive way of dealing with things. We want to just get started at the right time. And that's kind of the key thing that we often forget. We're looking to initiate action, and that this goes just as well for selling things. You're going to list something, between the full moon and the last quarter moon. That's terrific. But you may not sell it, until sometime, later in the next cycle, or maybe even the cycle beyond that. But you're listing it at the right time, right? You're getting something out there at the right time. Garage sale is a one-day thing. Listing something on Etsy, it could take a long time to sell. It doesn't mean that you're not going to sell it at a good price at the best time, or at the best time available to you. Similarly, a diet, I mean, if you're beginning a diet, you say, well, I want to begin the diet after the full moons, I'll catch the waning energy, but I'll just go down to the new moon. It doesn't quite work like that. If you're looking to lose weight, you're going to have to stick with it. So there is something to that whole thing about the beginning things that you want to endure on the last half of the cycle at the waning moon. So again, we're not looking for something that's going to play out immediately. We're looking to get the best possible time to begin an action, or the best possible time to do an action to get the best result. We're not going to expect things to happen within the course of a month. Now, it is true that if you look at the signs involved, you will get a better idea about what to do when. And I often talk about, the Aquarius new moon is a good time to set long distance intentions, whereas the Pisces new moon would be a time to think about like focusing more on spiritual intentions. Capricorn new moon is a great time for anything having to do with work and job. Virgo is also very good for that. The Virgo new moon, the Leo new moon. You know, what do I really want? What does my heart tell me I really want to do? That type of thing. So we can refine it by sign. And of course, we often talk about the full moon in the various signs and, you know, the different vibes that go with that. So, you know, the Cancer full moon often has an awful lot of protection kind of energy about it, whereas the Leo full moon tends to be very much a playful, fun full moon. So we can refine a bit with that, and we can, you know, you can wait for the right sign as well, you know, for the moon to be in the right sign. If the waxing crescent moon is in the sign of Scorpio, you know, maybe you want to hold off depending upon what it is you're looking to initiate. Maybe you wait till it gets a little further along into Sagittarius. You know, it's in a little bit more upbeat sign, or Capricorn will help you to work through it and so on. But we're not talking about that now. We're just talking about the basics of the lunar cycle. When the moon is waxing, you initiate things that you want to grow and continue. And when the moon is waning, things that you want to decrease, diminish, get rid of, or perhaps endure for a little bit longer. Avoid the new moon and the full moon and the time right around it. Give it as much space as you practically can. Watch out with intention setting for that first quarter of the cycle between the new moon and the first quarter moon. You got to be a little bit more precise about things. First quarter moon, great time to initiate. Last quarter moon, great time for celestial profit taking in any area of life. And then as you wane from the last quarter moon down to the new moon, you know, take a few days off. Okay, I'll be back with the regular forecast. So if you're subscribed, that's great. And if you're not, subscribe.